According to my sources in Syria, the obvious task is doing targeted killings, doing terrorist attacks, and then also engaging in shootouts with security personnel or interfering in peaceful demonstrations. So we have all kinds of activities as in the past, but this time it seems, as they say, that this is XE services furnishing the mercenaries themselves.
Now, if all the speculation is true, what is the U.S. government's role in all of this?
We can say very clearly, and there's ample proof of it, that without the United States of America, any interference in Syria would not have been possible. It is very clear that neither Qatar, nor Saudi Arabia, nor France, nor Britain, nor Turkey would dare doing anything in Syria without a very clear-cut green light, okay, or go from Washington.
Now, Kofi,
for the others, like mercenaries of XE services or of anybody, or paid, as in the last, enemies conference of Syria in Istanbul, they said we are going to pay them. Well, we know this was a joke. They have been paying these mercenaries all the time. So for those people, of course, there's the right to self-defense of the Syrian government in support of the peace for the Syrian people. I understand that also Germany is involved with secret services, personnel on the ground. So this cannot continue this way. We cannot allow a group of countries, even if it's NATO and I'm a NATO citizen, to plunge peaceful nations into war.
It is very, very clear that what happens in Syria today is breaking any law, any international charter, the Charter of the United Nations. There's gross interference. If they talk about whether they should, militarily act in Syria, well, they are doing that. NATO is doing that right now under the table with the help of some corrupt Arab states, unfortunately with the help of our dear NATO friends Turkey. So that is a very bad situation. We are lying our teeth out. We are telling the people we are not engaged in military action, but in fact we are doing that. We are guiding them. There's a German spy vessel off the Syrian Mediterranean coast, and they found turrets of a Syrian warship pointed directly into their face because they were, as the Syrians say, guiding German forces on the ground. Secret forces, of course, but they are killing anyway, and that is the situation. The Syrians right now, they are catching, French spies, British spies, Saudi spies, Turkish spies, and soldiers, regular soldiers, by the dozens. And that is a very bad situation. Well, I expect two outcomes. One will be told to the stupid Western public. Stupid because our media are constantly, grossly mispresenting what is happening on the ground in Syria today. They are always, calling the shots on one side and not on the other. They say the government is killing so and so many people, but they don't say how many people are being killed by a terrorist-like opposition, an armed opposition. This has nothing to do with a credible democracy movement inside Syria. Yeah, that's another one of these dirty jokes. In fact, what we face here is some kind of, prefabricated agenda. That agenda is helpful, if the West is starting an uprising in Iran. It is helpful if they start uprisings all over the Arab world and in Northern Africa, in Libya, for example, where the CIA started it from scratch, from zero. Yeah, there was no such uprising against Gaddafi, and then they, further it with international lies and Western media propaganda, and now they are trying the same agenda on Syria. But as we notice, everybody in the world who is watching closely notices that this kind of agenda simply doesn't work here. The New York Times just yesterday has made headlines saying this opposition in Syria is so badly disunited. They are so much, in trouble with each other inside this opposition that there is no real thing we can do, NATO can do politically.
I've just completed about a one-week fact-finding tour of the country. I've been in Homs, I've been in Tartus, Banyas, I've been in the military hospital here in Baghdad, and I can tell you what average, everyday Syrians of all ethnic groups, Christian, Alawite, Sunni, Shiite, Druze, What they say about this is that they are being shot at by snipers. In Homs in particular, people complained that there are terrorist snipers who are shooting at civilians, men, women, and children, blind terrorism, random killing, simply for the purpose of destabilizing the country. I think I would not call this a civil war by any stretch of the imagination. I think that's a very, very misleading term in the following sense. What you're dealing with here are death squads. You're dealing here with terror commandos, the kind of thing that everybody remembers from Argentina and the Central America. This is a typical CIA method. In this case, it's a joint production of CIA, MI6, Mossad, the DGSE of the French. It's got money coming from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. And it has a couple of interesting managers. The manager I think you should point to perhaps most is a guy called Khaddam. Khaddam was the foreign minister in this country for quite a couple of decades. He's almost 80 years old. He operates from Paris. And I think he's being groomed by NATO as the new dictator of some kind of... Very, very important thing is that this is the most tolerant society in the Middle East. This is one place where all kinds of people live together in, I think, remarkable harmony. And again, it's a very wide variety. Muslims of all kinds, Christians of all kinds, right? Christian, Greek Orthodox, Greek Catholics, Melkites, Syriacs, many, many other kinds, Druzes, Kurds, and so forth. This is a model of the peaceful coexistence of various ethnic groups. What we have here in Syria is a cynical media campaign, because I've been in Homs. When you go to Homs and you go to the Zahra neighborhood, which is supposed to be the hottest point in the whole country, you find people who are pro-Assad. They're concerned, number one, about mazout. They want to have heating oil because the winter is coming and it's getting cold. And you ask them, what is your demand? They say, we want the Syrian army to come in here. We want the Syrian army posted on the roofs of the houses with helicopters and tanks. Stop these snipers from killing us. Don't let these black hooded figures, which is what they are, pretending to be deserters when they're really maybe from Chechnya, they're from Libya, they're from Afghanistan or Pakistan. Foreign fighters have been brought in here by the CIA and the other Western services, and that is what's going on. And that is, I think, a very, very large part of it. And in the city of Homs, for example, in one hospital, they were telling us it was 5 dead and 7 wounded on one day. And what was it? It's all snipers. It's all these terrorists who are shooting the civilian population. Of course, when Al Jazeera arrives, they say, oh, those deaths are the responsibility of the Syrian army. That is absolute baloney. This is a Goebbels big lie campaign. There is no civil war here. There is no insurrection. There is no mass political movement against Assad. These are very, very limited, minor, strictly localized phenomena. This looks nothing like Libya. I know what a civil war in a modern Arab country looks like. I've been in Libya during the summer. There's no civil war here. It should be obvious to anyone that the entire destabilization of Syria is an armed insurrection that starts in the peripheral cities. It starts in the cities that are located along the borders, be it the Jordanian border or the Turkish border or the area that adjoins the Iraqi Kurdish entity where the U.S. essentially is in command there too. So that's where it started. And then we had the armed insurrection really starting in those places, and then the usual use of the social media, the Facebook, the Twitter, but especially the ultimate cynicism of this gay girl in Damascus blog, which I think has opened up a window into the methods that are being used all over the Arab world to manipulate people and to goad them into these abortive rebellions. The gay girl, of course, turned out to be an American marginal academic, and his wife, she had been working for the American Friends Service Committee. This is a group that has been accused again for decades of being somehow in league with the CIA. So we can imagine that the gay girl in Damascus was essentially a product of the Western intelligence services, but this then became the basis for serious coverage in the mainstream newspapers and in international cable television news channels. And at the end, it's a complete fabrication, a complete fraud. When you see film footage, news film, that seems to represent or is alleged to represent a rebellion going on in Syria, I think you have to take several big steps back and ask yourself, what am I being shown and what guarantee is there of this? Sometimes when you watch these things, they'll say, we received this from a cell phone camera somewhere in Syria. Naturally, we can't verify what it is. Well, maybe that's good reason to discount it completely, because it could be a complete fraud.
We've seen a big difference between October and February with what's going on in Syria. And that is the fact that the people are increasingly supporting the government. I've been there most of the last 2 or 3 months talking to a lot of NGOs, shopkeepers, citizens, officials, and the rest, and there's been a real shift. A shift of popular support for the reasons you know, the disgruntlement with the so-called opposition, and it seems that the army is now increasingly securing the area. So I think that's a different situation. As far as a message, I don't think it's much of a message being sent. We don't need a message in this part of the world. Everybody knows the election, not election, the Zionist enterprise is going to continue its aggression and its hostility to the resistance, and the resistance is symbolized by its major pillar that is Syria.
You are in Syria. Could you please just bring us up to date on the situation there?
You know, when you arrive in Syria, you will be very surprised, because the facts here are not connected at all with the things that the big medias are talking in Europe and the US. Because you think there is a kind of civil war or an uprising and mass repression, but there is not at all things like that in Syria. The Western countries are preparing a conventional war here in Syria, and they begin to send some fighters. Much of them are from Arab countries, and also some Pashtuns from Afghanistan and Pakistan. And these people try first to create an Islamic Emirate at the Jordan border. They fail. After that, they try to organize big ambush against the Syrian militaries, and now they organize some attacks inside the towns to kidnap people, kill them, and cut them in pieces. It's absolutely terrific. But there is no revolution. That's not at all the topic here in Syria.
But it's obviously getting stronger. I mean, there are tunnels, there are weapons being supplied, money being pushed in to create a revolution.
Yes, but no, not to create a revolution. It's possible that at the beginning they think to create a revolution, but now they try to organize a civil war between the different religious communities. But that's not at all a political uprising, not at all. You know, confessional violences are something very different. And when you see some demonstration against the regime, it's very small demonstration, only 100 or 200 people, and they are not representative from the other people of their own town. Absolutely surprised by the way the Western medias are dealing with the situation in Syria, because they reproduce a lot of accusation without any verification of what really happened. The
Just
main
like
source
Libya.
of the Western... Just like Libya, yes, just like Libya, absolutely, absolutely. But the main source of information is the so-called Syrian Observatory of Human Rights based in London. And in fact, this group, we don't know if it's a group. They said it is a group, but we know only one people from this group. It could be alone. And that man was very difficult to identify at the beginning, but now everybody knows his name. He has 3 passports from Syria, from Great Britain, and from Sweden, and he is one of the leaders of the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood. So that source is from one of the group involved against the Syrian government. So they are at the same time a protagonist and the informant. Of course, you can't do the same thing at the same time.
No. And Turkey's position is just atrocious. I mean, it's just being attacking Syria from all sides, giving protection to the rebels and helping them with weapons.
First, I think there is very few rebels, you know. They will probably develop as rebels, but now there is very, very few people in such rebels. There is a lot of mercenaries coming from outside and very few rebels from inside. And the position of Turkey, you know, first we forgot with some words at the Davos conference and about the Freedom Flotilla, we forgot that Turkey is a member of NATO. So Turkey now acts as a member of NATO.
My sources in Turkey and those also military sources here in the United States, and these are U.S. military sources and Turkish military sources familiar with the training of Syrian rebels in Turkey, in southern Turkey, in U.S. base, is Incirlik base in the southern part of Turkey, in Hatay area, since last May, and this is May 2011. And this story was confirmed by several high-level people from both sides, Turkish military and U.S. military. And we broke this story in November, on November 22nd, and no one in the U.S. media has reported on this, even though a week later this story was confirmed and it was publicized by major newspapers in Turkey, and nothing.
And why aren't we hearing this from the mainstream media?
Well, my sources told me that before they provided me with this information, a month before that, and this would make it around end of September, early October, they had gone to the New York Times and Washington Post and the New Yorker and some major popular alternative channels. And the editors there, they said they were not going to cover this angle and they would not provide them with any answer. And they were baffled. So basically, our website became the last resort for these people. And amazingly, the Turkish media, even though they've been under intense pressure by the government there, the reporters kept telling us that they've been reporting. Sure, they wouldn't want to jeopardize our troops, but I mean, just those excuses don't make sense. And this is exactly what they did with us with Iraq. And similar incidents took place during Libya. And now, since May, they have been helping the U.S. government to cover up these setup, these preparations, these activities, starting May 2011, because most people here in the U.S., they're under this impression that things are reactionary. Assad's regime is bringing about some atrocities and some rebels there, they're going and fighting. They have no idea that all these setups and preps started in May 2011. So it is by design, and it's not some kind of a simultaneously uprising situation where people are rebelling and then suddenly they are mysteriously armed, and mysteriously arms are being smuggled into Syria from Turkey. Well, who's providing these arms? Nobody's asking in the U.S. media. Well, these are U.S. arms shipped to Turkey. and from Turkey it's being smuggled into Syria.
My people deserve to live in a free Syria, tolerant Syria, and democratic Syria at peace with all its neighbors, including Israel.
We're asking anyone for any kind of help. Even the Israelis. Even the Israelis. Some guys say we don't matter. It doesn't matter. The Israelis coming.
Israel, it is not our real enemy, and it's never been our real enemy. That's the media of the regime.
We say goodbye, and Muhammad returns home.
עשייה ותרומה לחלש ושינוי התפיסה של ישראל בקרב מדינות האויב.
أول كنا رفضنا فكرة إنه لا تجيبوا ليش أن حاصل إحنا عقلتنا إنه هيك نحن ما قاعدين بس مش قعدنا معاهم وحكينا معهم ثاني مرة مش قالوا إنه نحن إسرائيليين ترى إلا لأن حسيتكم